What's good, beautiful people? Hey, so um I want to share a little bit about who I am. Um yeah, who is Angela? So I was born in North Carolina. My mother and father are both from this little town called Black Mountain slash Swananoa. You probably up until last year, it probably hadn't even been on your radar, but that's also where Hurricane Helene went through last year, and the entire town got flooded, essentially flooded out. It's where my dad was born. Literally, my dad was born right in Swannanoa, right at the area that got literally wiped out last year, in August. Yeah. So I'm from that little town, born in Asheville, North Carolina. Um, I was only there maybe 2 years. And then my mother, we moved up to Ohio because that's where one of her aunts lived. Actually, it's an aunt that I'm named after. I'm not going to tell you that name, but it's my middle name. But actually, I will. It's Margaret. My name is Angela Margaret. Yeah. So I was named after my Aunt Margaret. And so they lived up in Ohio. And so we moved up there. And then later moved down here to Atlanta because my dad's sister lived here. At the time, she was with a really well-known wrestler called Thunderbolt Patterson. Um, and so my dad, we moved down here. Um, and so this is essentially where I was raised. It is in Atlanta. Um, so I think maybe around third grade, maybe my dad found the Lord, and our lives completely changed at that point. Um, I like to say my dad is a black and white sort of guy. There's no gray area. He's changing a little bit, but he's very black and white. So he used to be to the far left, you know, and he went to the far right. And um I'm not saying that that is a good or bad thing or a negative or positive thing. But what it did for us kids was wreaked havoc on our life. So my grandmother was one of 10, matter of fact, the oldest of 10. So she has nine others. He had nine other siblings. And unfortunately, rest in peace, all of them. The last one literally just passed away last year, my Aunt Precious. Um, and so we were pretty tight. All of them were pretty tight. We used to have family reunions every 4 years. But at a certain point, because of my dad's religious beliefs, we no longer were we no longer were able to be in most of them's presence. I mean, it was to the point we had no TV in the house. Um, we couldn't listen to secular music, but listen, we couldn't even listen to gospel music. Um, so coming from so I don't know listen, I don't know much before, but I know that at that point in time, um our lives became crazy strict. We could no longer wear pants. We had to wear dresses past our down almost to the floor, probably middle of our calves. Yeah, no shorts, no nothing. We looked like Little House on the Prairie. We looked like Little House on the Prairie. Um, and I it was so we were taken out of public school, put in private schools. But then at a certain point, maybe when I hit around the ninth grade, they were no longer satisfied with those schools and decided. And my mother was pretty smart. She graduated high school, I think, at like 15, and then started college. So my mother, I think, was pretty smart in her um And so they thought that they could just take us out of all the schools altogether and homeschool us. So I was homeschooled ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Um, and what is luckily there was at that time homeschooling was on the rise. It was literally probably as fresh, brand new, and everybody it felt like wanted to do it. So there was a whole homeschool community. Thank God. Because I actually played basketball for the for our homeschool group. And we played regular, we played Christian and private schools. Not we didn't play public schools because we weren't that good. Um, but we were good enough to play the private or Christian schools in the Georgia area. Yeah, well, which is great. It's because it kept me in. It kept me surrounded by people in a particular part of life that it is literally secluding you. Um, because homeschool, we luckily there was two other families that conjoined with ours, and then my mother turned this really big room that we had into a whole classroom. So there are multiple people in this room in multiple grades. When I say multiple people, I mean like five. I don't mean 30. Yeah, but there was probably like five of us, and two of those, of course, were my brother and sister. But me and my brother and sister graduated. It's a funny thing, I'll tell you this story. So I now teach at Spelman. And so my sister came to the campus for the first time the other day, and we were sitting and talking, and I was like, yeah, so we didn't have the opportunity to experience like campus life and all these other things that kids, got a chance to. And somebody asked I think she was mentioning that, hey, when is your high school reunion? And she was like, I have a high school reunion every single day because it was me. Let that sink in. My high school graduating class was me. Yeah. So I have a high school reunion every single day. I don't need to get together with anybody because I am the reunion. Yeah. Um, and I don't say that I have animosity toward my parents for that, but um you realize that children develop being associated with other kids. Children, luckily I had a brother and a sister. So my brother was 3 years older than me, my sister 2 years older than me. Um, and luckily I think we had us. So we were still able to have that connection to kids. And there were certain families that my parents were allowed, which is the Ham, like Lisa Ham. Shout out to Lisa. Uh, and our parents loved her family, her mom and her dad. And so we were able to at least keep some friends. Families, another little story. We if you didn't believe like him and had a TV in your house, we probably weren't going to your house. Yeah, that's probably and that's probably why I got into film and probably why my brother got into acting or the arts was because it was like the thing that you keep us away from is the thing that we're going to run to. And I don't know if I've ever thought about it that deep, but that could very well be why is yeah. Um and so growing up in that, and most of the churches that my dad hung out with were white religious because the blacks were too black. Um, gospel music, drums, and all that stuff. We couldn't do none of that. We couldn't have any parts of it. Um, but uh, at the same time, I realized that my attraction was to women, not men, and Um, when people say you're born this way, it's I understand some people are come into it a little later in life, but there's some point that you probably didn't realize that you were suppressing it because it's easy to suppress something that is not, especially at that time, it's not looked upon as good. So you um you can suppress it as long as you could. I'm going to be honest, is I didn't suppress it. Um, if my dad ever watches this, yes. So, uh, again, I had probably made out with some of the girls in church. Um, yeah. Um, and I never thought of it as wrong. I just knew that other people didn't like it. You understand? I knew that other people didn't agree to it. And I know that in church they spoke about homosexuality, but they didn't speak about eating the pig, which is in the same context of scripture. And they didn't speak about having interwoven materials that's also that Leviticus speaks about. But you only want to make this one piece the biggest sin, man with man. And that's only, you know, so I like to tell people, I know the Bible because I was indoctrinated into it at such a young age. And it was, listen, I had to memorize the books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, First, Second Samuel, First, Second King, First, Second Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job. Listen, I know it. I know it. You ask me anything about it, I know it. And that's probably why um I it's so I understand what religion is, and I understand how people use religion. People use people have used religion as a way of keeping people in a box. People use religion to keep people um um in control. If I can control your outcome, then if I can control how you move throughout your life, um, I don't know if it makes them feel bad or not, but it must do something to, and I'm going to put pastors on this pedestal and I'm going to put my dad on the same pedestal. It must have something to do with the ego, to be that the Lord called me to come and tell you that this is what you need to be doing. It sounds very egotistical, sounds very narcissistic. Yeah, yeah. And I love my dad, but um he's changed these days because he'll tell you he moves in love these days, which he does. I for sure see a change in him. Um, yeah, I do see a change in the way that he interacts with people. Now he still has his beliefs in exactly who he is, but he still loves me for who I am, and I don't hide. I don't hide who I am. For some reason, I I give off, very masculine energy, but I'm cute. No, just fine. Not as I'm not. um, so that religious indoctrination that we were put through, you don't realize, I don't think they realize the damage that it does to your future self, to your adult self. Telling people that money is the root of all evil, that, it will take you down. The rich man, it's easier for a rich, to get into a thread to get into a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. That stuff like that. That is to keep the worker. Does that make that's to keep the worker. That's to make sure that I have you under my subjection. If I can keep you in control, then I can narrate and dictate how you move, probably to benefit me. It's not benefiting the Lord, it's benefiting me. I now have this, mega church that I created, that I'm in control of. even if it's not a mega church, even if it has a church of 12 people. I mean, you're talking about Jim Jones, Jim Jones to go those people down to Peru, wherever it was that he, had all his flock of sheep that listened to what he said and followed his instruction. And then they all committed suicide. They all died because they thought they were doing what was right, following a man. And I think that at some point, I think the Bible is a great guide. I think it's a great guide on how to move through life. Even the Bible says the greatest of these is love. And I think we forget those four letters, LOVE, that one word of love. I think we forget it because we so want to um, think in fear and fear of hell and fear of the afterlife. And I just don't think that's how I just don't think that's how we're meant to live in fear. I think we're meant to lead in love. And I think if you lead in love, it's not saying that you'll be rich or poor or leading in love will keep you poor. But I think leading in love will allow you yourself to actually be happy with who you are, rather than unhappy with who everybody else is. Focus on yourself. You came in here by yourself, you're leaving by yourself. Yeah, focus on yourself. Focus on making sure you're the best person that you can be. Forget about everybody else because everybody else has to figure out who they are. You can't figure that out for them. And coming from that highly religious background, um, I have a reverence for people who go to church. I have a reverence for people who use the Bible as their way of living their greatest life. But I don't have respect for people that use the Bible as a means of hate, a means of control, and a means of dictatorship. I don't think that's what it's meant to. I- if you want to look at the higher power, I don't think that's what higher power is meant for. I don't think that's what Buddha or Mahatma Gandhi or anybody who was a pillar of light in this world leads with hate. I think they've all led with love. Um, yeah, deuces. What's up, people? I believe I left off on my childhood and what that is like. What it was like. So if anybody has ever been in a highly religious, incredibly strict, the best I could probably describe it as somebody who is in a who grew up in a Muslim home, or even Amish people. Um, you don't know what. So I didn't know what life on the outside looked like because I had no access to it. We didn't have a TV in the house. We didn't have radio. I couldn't read magazines. I couldn't bring Tiger Beat home. I couldn't bring, I couldn't bring Vibe home or uh, Jet magazine, Ebony. When I went over to my aunt's house, now we could look through them and be like, ooh, ooh, this is good. But we didn't have these things at home to be able to see on a daily basis to see how jacked up our life was. We didn't have it. So we knew glimpses of it, but because our daily life wasn't ingrained or engrossed in that sort of life, we sort of just went ahead, we just went along with it. We just went to church every Sunday, Sunday night, Wednesday, and because I'm a PK, we were always under so much scrutiny. We were always having to be on our best behavior. Um, so it's a little, um, it was definitely, I'm not going to say it was hard, but I think the hardest part for me was the dresses, because I absolutely hated dresses and skirts. Um, Absolutely hate them to this day. You will not ever catch me in a dress or a skirt. I hated it then and I hate them now. Um, yeah, that's probably the worst thing. I know people say you didn't miss the TV. No, because I didn't have it enough to know that I was missing it. I read books all the time. I could read a book in a day by the time I left home because that's what I had. And we had, I would say, is we did have a lot of conversation in the house. So I also had, an older brother and an older sister. And I was a baby for 12 years. So my younger sister, same mom and dad, didn't come along until 12 years later. So, but I had my siblings and they were in the same situation. So it was like we were all in this together. Um, and um, whew, yeah, in the moment, you don't know what you're missing or if you're missing anything because you don't know that you're missing it. You just know that there's something else out there and that you want to, at some point in time, experience it. But you actually also have to have the strength to make that move because even back in those days, if you disagreed with their ideology, with my dad's ideology or his teachings, they probably kicked you out of the church. And they probably didn't have anything to do with you anymore. They probably, we no longer could hang with your kids anymore. I mean, there were so many things, uh, rules and regulations. And I think the biggest one was the boob tube, the television, which my dad used to call it. And I'm gonna blow him out the park. Funny thing about it is he has a TV in his bedroom now. Let that sink in. We were taught how horrible the TV was. I mean, he called it the television. Yeah, the television. So, yeah, it's wild to think about that. For all those years, I never watched TV. Maybe if I went to a aunt's house or a cousin's house or my grandparents' house, I could watch a little bit while I was there. But if he walked in that door, cut this TV off. This is not the way. Yeah, oh yeah, he was a little mean. He was a little mean to people that didn't agree with what he believed in and went against him. Um, because I think I go back to that whole thing of most pastors or people um in that pastoring a flock. I think they have a bit of not think they have bits of narcissism and um control. They're control freaks. Um yeah, they have to have a bit of a narcissism because they in their eyes they need to guide their flock because they're the sheep. And if you look at our world today, there's always a shepherd and sheep. There's always the in charge and the following. There's always the lead. Um, Most the businesses have an owner and workers. And most of the time, those owners absolutely do have bits of narcissism in them because in order to build something, you do have to be in control because it all falls on your back. So it requires a bit of excessive behavior. And it's not always bad behavior because there are great uh, CEOs out there. I know a few of them, and I'm actually in a partnership with one of them who runs a business. She runs it with a tight ship, but she's also a fair boss, fair owner. Yeah. But Yeah, so I think preachers are part of that same CEO. They're the CEO, and everybody in their church are their workers. Um, yeah, so it requires a little bit of narcissism control. Yep. Um, so, um, but I think um, one of the things that I got from my dad as a teenager was to go in business for yourself. So when I was home as a teenager, so again, I had an older sister and an older brother. Um, my brother was gay as well. And I don't think they caught on because he wasn't like he was a feminine or anything like that. But I played the sports. He played football, but he sat on the bench. I played. I wanted to be the roughhouse. I wanted to be the boy. So at some point, my dad um, started a tree service company and landscaping. And who was his worker? Me. Me. So he really did want to instill in us, be an entrepreneur, be be your own boss. And he always told us this one thing. The reason you want to be your own boss is because if something happens and you need to go out of town, emerge family, whatever it is, you don't have to ask anybody for time off because you're the time offer giver. Yeah, and so he would tell us that because I think also too at a certain point, like his father got sick, my mother's mother got sick, and we would be in North Carolina at any given moment trying to, visiting family, visiting, his sick relatives. Um, and I don't think we for sure wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have his own business. Um, yeah, and I think that's why we we have all tended my all my brothers and sisters have tended to be of the entrepreneurial spirit, be able to dictate how we um, move through life. Work when we not when we want to work, but work how we want to work. And I think all four of us have had that same spirit. Um, yeah, even to this day. I think we all have that is yeah, and we got it from him. Um Now I do believe he wanted me to be a good Christian wife and mother. Uh that wasn't happening. Um mm-mm, that wasn't happening. But you know, yeah, I'm assuming that they must have known that I was a tomboy from John Street. There was literally almost no denying it. I hated dresses. I hated anything to do with dresses. Skirts. I didn't want any parts of them, and I had to wear them daily, daily. And sometimes we made them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's probably one of the things that I disliked the most with my upbringing were the dresses, not being able to wear pants or shorts. I am a shorts wearer. I will wear shorts above pants any day. I will wear shorts above anything any day. Any day. So I think for me I didn't know the TV to miss the TV. I didn't know I didn't know the secular life because I didn't miss the secular life because I didn't know the secular life. Only do what we knew and what were allowed to be a part of. Now, we did stuff like bowling. We climbed Stone Mountain. We did activities. Um, but, going to the movies or um, going to a concert or anything, oh God, no. Watching TV, oh no. Mm-mm. Learning a dance, mm-mm. Reading a magazine, absolutely not. You had the Bible. That was your magazine. The Bible was my magazine. Yeah. And that's probably why I can now quote Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. I can continue. I know the books of the Bible because I remember having to learn the books of the Bible before I went outside and played. Yeah, my dad schooled me on it before I stepped out the door. Yeah, yeah, still here. So I tell people that I know the Bible backwards and forwards, and I still couldn't. And that's probably why I can't believe that a father, the entity, would create me or people just to have them die and go somewhere where they suffer. And put it in context. I don't think there's any mother or father out there that has kids with the intent of suffering, making the kid suffer. Now, there are people out there that have kids who should not be having kids, who make their kids suffer. And there's plenty of parents out there that think they are doing right by their kids by leading them down this path instead of that path. But I think they think it's for the good of the child rather than the child suffering. So, back to the Bible and suffering, I do I do not believe that an entity, if you want to call him Father God, Allah, Buddha, Messiah, whatever you want to call him, would create beings only with the intent of some suffering, some not. Yeah. I can't, I, Angela just cannot fathom a mother or father having that will intent on their kids. And that's and yeah. So I think, I always like to say this is hell on earth. We're actually in hell because this is a place where our bodies feel pain. This is a place where our bodies feel emotions, whether good or bad. Uh, this is the place where we experience grief, sadness, happiness. I mean, we can experience heaven to hell. We could probably experience heaven to hell within a day. You wake up, it's a great day. Oh my God, I'm living. Da, 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 da. You fall down the steps and break your ankle. You know, uh, this is the place that you can experience all forms. So it feels like this is more hell on earth than anything else. It's rather than going to a place afterwards. This feels like it. Like you can either make this a heaven or hell, but then sometimes you don't have a choice in it. We don't have a choice in what our genetics do. We don't have a choice in our genetics giving us big hands or little hands or big feet or blue eyes or brown eyes. We don't have a choice in that. It's just happens. So some of these things we don't actually have a choice in. I like to tell people, I like food. I like to eat, and I like to eat good food. Um, and we were a study the other day about how bacon takes 6 minutes of your life. But you look at somebody that has led a healthy vegan life, the passes away at 30. And then you look at somebody like George Burns, who lived up to 100, smoking cigars and drinking. What is the difference? Is it oh my God, I enjoy my everyday life. I enjoy everything about life, and I'm a smoke and drink, and I'm going to enjoy it. Or is it that nope, I'm not going to eat sweets. No, I'm not going to do this. No, not going to do that. I'm going to lead a very clean, strict life. Which one is it? Which one leads us into a better life, a longevity life? Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. Yeah. So So, yeah, so getting back to my life, my childhood. Again, if you do not know what you're missing, you have no way of missing it. Um, as if okay, give an example. If you're born into a very wealthy family, you do not know what poor is like because you've never experienced poor. You don't understand what missing something is because you've never had to miss it. Um, and it's the same way with us is we knew it was out there, but we didn't know enough about it to miss it at that time. At that time. Um, yeah, we didn't know enough about it to miss it. Um, so, but yeah, and I didn't actually get the courage to leave home until I was like 23, 24. Yeah. Um, it was the hardest decision, but I knew I had to make that decision if I was going to be who I was going to be. And it wasn't about being disobedient to my mother and father. It wasn't about going against the Lord. It was literally just being who I knew I was meant to be. That's it. There was no other ulterior motives. It was just literally wanting and needing to be who I was. That's why I left home. Yeah. That's why I moved away. That's why I ended up in LA. It was because I wanted to be me.